Hi guys, welcome back to Politics Enhanced. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video, and today we're going to talk about a very important subject, which is how Donald Trump could win the presidential election. And as you can see, these are the betting odds, and recently Trump has gone up. He's gone up in the betting odds. And we're going to talk about why that is. But before I do, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the post notification bell if you can. And without further ado, let's get started. So, Donald Trump is more likely to win the election as of right now. The betting odds have him favored to win just slightly, and that's for one reason and one reason only. The fact that Kennedy might drop out of the election. And as you can see here, I wanted to look at the RCP polling, a five-way race between Trump, Harris, Kennedy, Stein, and West. So the third-party candidates are included in this poll. And as you can see, Kennedy takes up a significant amount of the electorate for a third-party candidate. He takes up 4.5% of the popular vote, which is quite a lot. And there's a lot of skepticism and debate over whether or not Kennedy harms Trump or Kamala more so. It used to be Biden. But as you can see right here, Kennedy takes up a significant portion of the popular vote. And then you have Jill Stein. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Jill Stein arguably handed Donald Trump the Rust Belt back in 2016 because of Jill Stein. Trump won the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania because she took more than 1%, in addition to the Libertarian Party that also helped eat away at some Democrat votes. So overall, a third-party candidate with this big of a share would definitely help Trump if he got an endorsement from Kennedy. And there is some good news. So, according to Breitbart, RFK Jr.'s running mate admits the campaign is considering joining forces with Donald Trump. And I think Kennedy knows that there's really not a good shot of him winning the election outright. I'll do a video on his possible paths to victory pretty soon. But as we can see, Kennedy is considering dropping out and working with either campaign. And he recently tried to work with Kamala Harris, but she wouldn't even talk to him. She wouldn't even speak with him. So if we go back to the polls, we see that Kennedy has 4.5%. What would happen hypothetically if Kennedy endorsed Donald Trump? Well, first of all, Donald Trump's vote share would probably go up and he would probably overtake Harris in the polling. Let's just assume that he gets all of Kennedy's supporters. I know that's a bit outlandish, but even if he gets half of them, so he gets about 2.5% more of the popular vote with a Kennedy endorsement, that would really shape up the race. Because the truth is, all these states are going to be very close. And we're going to fill in the map if Donald Trump does 2.5% better and he gets Kennedy's endorsement, which would put him at a +1 over Kamala. So as you can see, we have all the Great Plains states. The state of Texas would be safe. Alabama, the Deep South, Ohio, Iowa, Florida would be safe. Alaska, Nebraska at large, Maine's 2nd congressional district would all be safe Republican coming out the gate. And then, of course, you also have the Democrat states. The states that are going to vote for Kamala no matter what. New York, although I think that'll get closer. Illinois, Hawaii, and Maine's 1st congressional district. And that is it. The rest of the states would be closer with a 2.5% shift from Kennedy's endorsement. And we're going to start with the likely states, which there are some. And the first likely state I think would flip would be Georgia. And Georgia is an interesting state because it's a very ruby red state. It used to be ancestral Democrat. Carter was from there. And the Democrats used to do good in the state, but it's trended away from the Democrats in the past few decades. And now it's become a battleground state. You have a lot of people from the Northeast coming in. But Kennedy's base, if they come out and support Donald Trump, that would easily give Trump a 7-point win in the state of Georgia. It would be the 2012 version of Georgia would come back. The same goes for North Carolina. North Carolina is an interesting state as well because it's a large southern state. You have a lot of diversity, but you also have a lot of rural areas. The western part of the state is very ruby red, and it's only the cities that make it into a swing state. If Trump won it in 2020, he will also likely win this state in 2024. And with Kennedy's endorsement, it'll be a considerably large margin, probably 7 to 8 percentage points. So that would be Georgia and North Carolina, and Trump only needs 19 more electoral votes. Now we're going to do the likely Democrat states, which there are a couple. The first one would be Colorado, and the second would be New Mexico. And the reason why I say this is, yes, Donald Trump is doing better with Hispanics than past Republicans. He's doing the best he's ever done in terms of his electoral chances nationally. However, Colorado and New Mexico are just bizarre states. They're very left-leaning. The city of Albuquerque and Santa Fe are very heavily Democratic. And then the same goes for Aspen and Denver in Colorado. And they just push the state over into the liberal column. I do think that they would be closer, probably a 6-point win each respectively for Kamala Harris, even with the endorsement of Kennedy. But now I think we should do the lean states, the lean Republican states, which there are quite a few. And the first lean state I do believe would flip for Donald Trump would be the state of Arizona. If Trump gets that Kennedy endorsement, he'll get probably some of the Mormon voters in the northern state near the Utah border that would come out. Trump would also do better in the Phoenix area, as Kennedy has a large appeal to suburbanites. So that extra 2.5% bump from Kennedy would really help him in a state like Arizona. He would overtake Maricopa County, and he would do considerably better and probably win by 2.5 to 3 percentage points. The same also would go for the state of Nevada. And Nevada, I think, would have flipped regardless, even if it wasn't for Kennedy's endorsement. In this scenario, if Kennedy does not endorse Donald Trump, I do believe he'll still win the state just because of the trends. It would be very similar to Arizona. Trump would probably win it by 2.5 to 3 percentage points just because you would have that endorsement from Kennedy. Kennedy wouldn't be eating up votes in the voting box, the voting booth. He wouldn't be sucking away votes, so they would go to Trump. He would win those suburban voters in Clark County, which would be very good for Donald Trump. And he's almost at that 270 mark, that magic number. So he's getting close. He only needs one more state, but we're going to do the lean Democrat states first, which I do believe would be Maine at large. The reason why I say Maine at large is because Maine is an interesting state. It's trended more Republican. It doesn't really like incumbents. However, I do believe that Kamala would barely eke out a victory, but it would probably be only by about 3 points in the state of Maine as a whole. It is a more conservative state since it's northeastern. It's more of a conservative state as opposed to other northeastern states like Massachusetts or Rhode Island. So I do think that Maine at large would be lean for Kamala. I also believe that Minnesota would be a lean state for Kamala Harris. This is because even though Kennedy's support for Trump probably would lessen Kamala's share in the state of Minnesota. However, she would still win the state of Minnesota. I do believe it could flip red if Trump does even better in the popular vote, but as of right now, I don't see it happening. Maybe you could maybe argue that Minnesota would be tilt Democrat. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it as tilt Democrat in this scenario because, yeah, Kennedy's endorsement would be huge. A lot of ancestral Democrats would probably go over to Trump as opposed to Harris. So that would almost win Trump the state of Minnesota, but not quite. The next state that I believe Donald Trump would win would be the state of Wisconsin, and he would probably lean it by about 2 to 2.5 percentage points with Kennedy's endorsement. He would do very good in the Wild Counties, the western part of the state, which is trended very Republican. He would do good in the southeastern part, the Kenosha area, and he would win the state by a decent margin for a Republican, and it would really help Trump if he got that endorsement from Kennedy. And the next state that I believe Donald Trump would pull off would also be the state of Pennsylvania, and I do believe that Donald Trump would win it probably by about 1.7%, almost 2%, but not quite, because Pennsylvania is one of those true battleground states. I personally believe Pennsylvania is the new Ohio, along with Arizona and Nevada. But in this scenario, Pennsylvania has the capacity to vote more Republican than in years past, but I don't think it would be a landslide for Trump. Now, we'll see if more polling comes out. The polls have him up in Pennsylvania by 1. So Kennedy's endorsement would give him a little bit more of a cushion in the state of Pennsylvania. And now we're down to our last 3 states, and we're going to see who would win them. So I think we should first talk about Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which I do believe Trump would win in this scenario. He would do better with the suburban voters due to Kennedy's support. The ancestral or moderate Democrats would come out and support Trump because Kennedy endorsed him, and that would barely give him that extra crucial electoral vote in the state of Nebraska as a whole. And now we're truly left with the real battlegrounds in this scenario, and I do think that Virginia, there's been some good polls that have come out for Donald Trump in the state of Virginia, and I'm really not sure which way it would go because Trump is only down by 3 according to Roanoke College, and that does put Virginia in play, so it might be a true battleground now, at least for this election. But Biden did win it by 10 points, so it's really hard to tell if there could be a 10-point shift or not. That might be a bit out there, so I'm going to give it to Kamala by only less than 1% because there are a lot of third-party voters in the state of Virginia. A lot of ancestral Democrats, governor workers would come out, and not all of them would, but some minority of the governmental workers would come out and support Donald Trump. As for New Hampshire, this is an interesting state because it hates incumbents. Kamala is doing worse there in the polling than her previous Democrat predecessors. So if Trump does end up getting the endorsement from Kennedy, I do think he would narrowly win the state of New Hampshire, probably by less than 1%, less than 0.5%, because New Hampshire does not like incumbents, and New Hampshire does have a pretty heavy moderate Democrat population. So if just a fraction of them go over to Trump, he wins the state. And lastly, we have the state of Michigan, Donald Trump's closest state in 2016, and with Kennedy's endorsement, Trump would easily win this state, probably by 1%, and he would defeat Kamala Harris. He would defeat the Biden-Kamala guerrilla regime, 317 to 221 electoral votes. So Kennedy's endorsement would be huge. It would really help out Donald Trump. And I hope that Kennedy comes to his senses and he realizes that it's really a long shot for him to win. But if he endorses Trump, that would certainly help. If you like this video and you like what you saw, again, please like, comment, and subscribe down below as it helps small channels like mine take off. And until next time, thank you for watching.